I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Today's podcast is about slowing down, the art of slowing down. Ironically, when a friend of mine asked me this week what I was going to be recording, I couldn't even get the words out. I just started bursting out laughing. I said, it's slowing down. Because right at that moment, it was multitasking about 10 different things, having a project, having a new hire, having all these things happening at once. And it felt like I was on that roller coaster right as she was asking me that question. So we both just burst out laughing. And she said, well, share that, because a lot of, we all have so much going on. And so year round, that's always going to be the case. Right now, as I'm recording this, it is Christmas Eve morning. So we all know what that looks like for all of us everywhere. And it looks a little bit different for all of us, but there's so much that everybody's trying to fit in, a lot of last minute deadlines for year end, a lot of things with family, getting ready. And then we immediately are shifting from this insane speed of preparation, go, organization, trying to make sure we have it all together. And then we're trying to switch that gear very quickly to slowing down and being, present with our families and enjoying it and not having that constant checklist, constant to-do list going off in our heads. So that's where I think a lot of us are right now, smack in the middle of holidays. If you're listening to this podcast any other time of the year, you're still going to, I think, have a lot of things that you'll pick up. I had actually written an article, The Art of Slowing Down, for Thrive Global, and it was over the fall. And so it's kind of what this is centered on. So it's not necessarily holiday specific. So definitely if you're listening, keep listening, because it's not just about holidays. It just happens to be completely hilarious that it is down to crunch time. I've, of course, with all the other things going on, thought I would record this podcast a few days ago. It wouldn't be right in the morning of Christmas Eve. I would be doing it. So I'm happy that this is this week's episode, because I can use this gentle reminder myself. So here's where it kind of, I guess what I'd like to try to kind of think through and where it all came about. So the reason I even wrote an article about the art of slowing down is a few months ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who I grew up with. I've known him my entire life. And we were talking about just whatever was going on at that point in time. And he compared the pace of my life and how I go to intercession. And if you're not familiar, intercession is when an entire college course is crammed into the short break between semesters. And so when I was in college, intercession was my go-to solution for okay, let's maximize productivity. So instead of taking a break between semesters, I'm going to knock out a full semester of coursework in just 3 weeks. It was intense. It was way overstimulated, but I was like, okay, check, it's done. So it was not relaxing, enjoyable, peaceful. I probably did not retain all of that information as I would have in a normal class, but I looked at it as efficient. So in the 20 plus years since college, clearly this pattern has continued, or he wouldn't have made that comment that, I was telling so-and-so, Molly's life, it's like intercession. I thought, that's not good. With everything on high speed, always looking to see how much we can fit into the smallest window of time. It's not good. And of course, it often backfires. And I think that's, if we're looking at our lives and we kind of think, where are we going to try to multitask? We think we're doing it well, but we're really not. I was at a course, a continuing education type CEUs that we do for work. And one of them, they had an example about how multitasking, we think we're efficient. It's really not. And there is a video playing on the screen that had words, and really simple words, like the cat had a green scarf and blue mittens, and just really simple. And then there was another really simple story that was audio that you heard. So the idea was for this 30-second clip or whatever, you're looking at the screen and seeing the words that are on there that you're reading, just like we would be reading our email. And then you're listening to these words at the same time, just as if someone's walking up to us while we're looking at our phones or looking at our email. And how many times do we tell that person, like we're typing that email and we're like, no, I'm listening. I'm just doing this. Or you're on your phone and you're scrolling, you're looking for something. You're like, no, go ahead. I'm listening. Well, at the end of this very simple thing, a very simple activity, no one in the room could remember anything about like what color the cat's mittens were or scarf or anything, or had no idea what had been said on the audio. So these very simple, when we're looking, trying to see and hear, read and hear at the same time, for most of us, it's nearly impossible. And so when we think we're multitasking, we're scrolling through our phones, our kids are talking to us, we think that we're doing just that one quick email while a coworker's trying to maybe confide something or ask us, our advice. We think we're giving our full attention, and it's so far from it. So I thought that was, I'd been aware of that, and I knew that was something that, like many of us, I wanted to work on and needed to improve. And I had thought that I had done a pretty good job of being peaceful, balanced, and centered. But the reality is, again, like so many of us, we just run on all cylinders and we think that we've got it all under control, but we're really maxing out our emotions, our time, our energy. So while multitasking can have its place, like nobody should be living their lives like intercession. So there are some upsides to it, I'll say. I do like what I'll call multitasking, like the habit of going with my husband or a friend for a walk and talk. That to me is just one of the most beautiful things because you're kind of double dipping into those baskets of productivity, but also joy. So you get to spend time with your family, your friends, your husband, and you get to have that benefit of that endorphin release, mental clarity that comes with movement. So I do think that there are times when we can pair things that we want to experience together, but I think we have to be really careful about how we do it. So over the summer, my husband and I had the chance for extended travel. We had about 3 months that we were able to largely be on the go, and that was very special. That is not something we had ever done before. It's probably not something we will have the opportunity to do again for a very, very long time. And so I chose that during this time, I really wanted to make the commitment to make changes that were going to be lasting changes when I got back from that. So kind of using that as a jump start, as a kickstart. And so um, each day while I was there, I was trying to soak in what was around me, what were in these cultures that we were experiencing that were so much slower, yet still productive, still enjoyable and beautiful in these incredible experiences, but not on such overdrive like us. So here's a peek at what I saw, at what I observed, learned, experienced along the way. And these are some of the things that truly inspired me for what has been lasting change since I've been back in town. I do know that in crunch times like holidays with deadlines, I give myself that pass. And I think we all need to do that. And if you're not, please start because there are times when we simply do have a lot happening. It is the end of, the year or deadlines, or there's a lot that is all in one window. But we know I think the biggest difference is if we know that that window is going to pass or can pass, and this is just a short burst of this high intensity, but then there's an end to it, that's very different than living our lives constantly with one after another of those. I think the issue comes when we say, I've got this, I'm insane, it's off the charts, but once that's over, it's going to be okay, and then it isn't. We keep piling more and more and more on. So I think, I know for myself, this came at perfect timing, but I think that I would give myself a good B plus for how I've been doing since I've gotten back, as far as kind of staying true to a lot of these. So this is what has inspired me. I hope it inspires you as well, so that we can all settle back a bit, feel more peaceful, breathe more deeply, and have more time, more emotional availability to soak in the energy and the positivity that surrounds us. Often we just don't always tune into it. So we spent a lot of our time in Europe, and a lot of it was in Italy and places like that where they're just known for having a very slow paced life, but also a very high appreciation for life, quality of life, the people in their life. And one of the biggest things that I saw is that their relationships with their phones are totally different from ours. Um, no surprise, I know that, but there was not the prevalence of your phone is glued to your hand like we have here in the United States. I don't think I saw a single person texting while walking or driving. And almost always smartphones are put away at mealtime unless it was for like a photo with family or something like that. During the time that we were out of town, we also used that time to like distance our own selves from our smartphones. So we purposely didn't do the international plan. So we only had access to emails and texts when we connected to Wi Fi, which made when we were connected to Wi Fi, either usually on our phones, but sometimes on our computer, it made that screen time more purposeful because you were connecting for a reason to do something, not just mind numbingly scrolling through your phone. We were only engaging with our phones when we had a specific need to do it. So since then, I have made lasting changes as it relates to smartphones. So, one thing that I do, and I would really encourage trying this has been to me just a game changer. At night, try sleeping with your phone in another room. And it doesn't have to be far away. And I know for me, I use my phone as my alarm to wake up in the morning. So I don't want it far, but I have it just in the bathroom, which is like right behind our bedroom. It's I can easily hear it when the alarm goes off. But it with the biggest thing that happens then is if you wake up in the night and you go to turn your phone to look at it and you saw something on your screen, you saw a text message come through, some sort of alert, whatever. It's so easy at 1 or 3 or whatever in the morning to look at that. And then you're awake and you're stimulated, and we've totally disrupted our sleep. So, sleeping with our phones in the other room helps to eliminate that. The other big thing is when you put your phone away before bedtime and then you're getting in bed, scrolling through your phone is not the very last thing you're doing before you go to sleep, which is also very healthy for our brains to not have that artificial light and that stimulation be the very last thing. I'll actually flip through a magazine, I'll read part of a book, and I'm doing things that are also much more beneficial for sound, restful sleep as opposed to having the stimulating phone right before bed. So, probably the hugest thing that I have changed, and I would really suggest if you're looking at kind of slowing down, um, pulling that spiral and that whirlwind out of your brain, I would really suggest putting your phone in the other room, at least completely across the room from you where you don't see it. It's turned over. You're not going to see anything light up on there while you're sleeping. The other thing to that point is if you have alerts, notifications coming through your phone, turn them off unless it's something that has to do with your kids' safety or knowing something that is you absolutely need to know right that minute. We don't need our phones, alerting us with a noise, a vibrate, or anything else. We have enough stuff stimulating us through the day. We don't need that. That gives them the phones control of us and our time and our reactions. Instead, we can then choose when are we going to look at our phone? What's happening right now? We pick up our phone, we make that decision versus always having these pings every time that something is coming through. So, my huge recommendation also turn off the alerts, the notifications, unless it's absolutely critical. You can also set them to only be during certain times of day. So if you feel like you do need email notification, which I truly don't think we need that, but if you do, we can set it for certain times during the day. So I think that living our life with a better sense of control of our smartphones, I think, is key. So, as it came to our actual travel itself, one of the next big things that I took away is that no plan is the best plan, and truly no plan. And that was terrifying going in because, as many of us, I'm a big planner. I think a lot of us are. We feel like in order to be as productive, to do all the things we want to do, we must plan. We have that game plan, we've got it all outlined, we know what we're going to do. Our best experience has happened when we were unplanned, unscheduled. We were allowing ourselves to be fully open to truly experience the experience. And so we stayed in over 20 different towns. A lot of them were really small towns. But again, we didn't have a plan week to week. It made us actually slow down. We were not always on our way somewhere. So we were actually slowing down, talking to people, learning from them, um, meeting new people, hearing what were their favorite places, what were the things that they like to do to enjoy. And a lot of times that would dictate where we went. And when does that ever happen? And those were the best places that we ended up. And I think so much when we do things, whether it's big travel or just on a normal Saturday, we have everything so scheduled that we're not leaving room for really cool opportunities that can pop up. Those like, yeah, why not? Let's try it. We don't give ourselves time for that. So I think a really big thing that I learned was that no plan can often be really the best plan. Now, if you're going somewhere for the first time, you're visiting a place and you have 1 week, we have to structure it. We have to plan it because there's certain big things you're not sure if or when you'll be back, and you need to make sure that you fit these things in. But I do definitely really highly suggest that whether it's travel, whether it's a normal Saturday, whatever it is, not having so much structure to our days that we can't allow that little bit of flexibility for when something really cool might pop up, something really special, something that might be with our kids, our spouse, our friends, our coworkers, that instead of saying, oh, I can't, I've got to pass because I'm on my way to XYZ, if we're always on our way somewhere, we're always going to be declining what might end up being some really cool experiences. So, first big takeaway, changing our relationships with our phones, not letting our phones tell us when we're looking at them, but setting them aside, changing those alerts. We choose when we're picking it up and we're doing it as mindfully as possible. And then number two would definitely be let go of at least some of that maxing out our schedule and having everything planned. And really, for the most part, it's going to work itself out. Again, this time of year, it's holiday season. As I'm recording this, there's a lot we have to fit into this very short window. I realize that's a little bit different, but again, on a normal weekend day, on a normal weekend travel, as much as we can kind of just let ourselves have a loose schedule, but not so maxed out, keeping it unplanned and just giving yourself that window to experience the experiences instead of looking to see what your next step is going to be huge. Okay, so another big thing that I saw a big change in, and it's motivated me, is how they drink their coffee. And smartphones were a big like aha moment. Realizing after that first week that we were okay because we didn't have things planned and it was going to be all right. But the cafes were also like striking. So even in like, well, the biggest thing there is that there's no to-go cups. Everything is a true coffee mug. And because Europeans slow down, they stop, they enjoy their coffee. So we would be in train stations that people were like running through city centers, and you didn't see anybody walking with that paper cup, that plastic coffee cup. They all would, sit at a table or stand even just at the counter, sipping their coffee, visiting with others around them, or just watching others around them, not scrolling through their phones. Because also, too, how many times have you passed someone and you're like, oh, they're so and so, and they're scrolling through their phones and they don't even see you? So, how much else are they missing? So, that was something that I noticed too is sipping their coffee, real coffee mugs, but they're small. They would have it. And then they would, read a book, look around at people, visit with the people next to them, people watch. But the point being is they carve out this tiny little space in their day to slow down, to savor their coffee, the tea, whatever it is, and really just soak in the world around them. My friend texted me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I have a new crusade for you once y'all are all done with Eat Fit. And that is to try to get real coffee mugs at our coffee shops. And he sent me a picture of a Starbucks cup, and he had been, at his local coffee shop or local Starbucks, and paper was the only thing available. He's like, really? There are no, like, if I'm staying here, I can't get a mug, and apparently wasn't able to. So, in a lot of our really, truly local coffee shops, yeah, we can get real coffee mugs these days. But I think it's some about what we're drinking out of. It's also about what we're doing while we're sipping that coffee. I also found, just on the note of coffee, it's stronger. It's what we think of as like European coffee. And where I used to have like a big, everything was just big coffee cups and big everything, having the higher quality, really a little bit more intense, that one little cup of it and savoring it versus sipping it out of a big go cup while I'm in the car going somewhere, that has really changed it also. And I've probably dialed my caffeine intake back by maybe 75%, which to me I would have a couple of cups of coffee in the morning, some in the afternoon. I think, again, going back to that living the life of intercession, fueled by coffee. And so a big change for me is that really dialing back that caffeine intake. We change the type of coffee we buy. We buy Illy coffee, and we do the Illy espresso when we have more time, or we do the little Nespresso intense little pods in the machine. But it is much more like that style of coffee, that Italian or European style of coffee, that is bolder, intense, and just that little bit is so satisfying. And I would have never thought I would ever dial my caffeine intake back, but I wasn't even trying. It just happened, I think, because of all these other things. I wasn't feeling like I needed to rev up to get ready for whatever that afternoon is, or um, because trying to be just a little bit more balanced. One thing I would encourage as we're looking at these things, changing our relationships with our phones, maybe with how we sip our coffee, um, not trying to have everything just quite so scheduled. We might find ourselves, shocker, with like a few minutes of time that we are sitting there. And so there's a concept called habit stacking. And I recently read an article about this in Thrive Global. I can link to it in our podcast notes. I liked that it's called habit stacking, not multitasking, but basically taking what's a time that you're going to spend doing something else anyway, and layer in a beneficial habit that you would like to try to incorporate more of. So, for example, if you realize that throughout an entire day, you almost never stop and really just take a really deep breath and like stop and tune into your thoughts, your body, your what's going through your head right then, and taking 3 deep breaths. A lot of times we are just going through our day and we never do that. So if you are sitting and having that coffee, or if you are just going to bed and you don't have your phone in front of you, it frees up our brain space a little bit. And so if we can layer in some beneficial habits that we wanted to incorporate anyway, this could also be while you're doing something completely mundane. It could be while you're brushing your teeth. It could be while you're driving to work, making a smoothie in the morning, making your coffee in the morning. Whether it's, okay, tuning into your breathing for literally just 30 seconds can be okay. 30 seconds is it. That's enough to at least bring that awareness. If it's a minute, great, but for a lot of us, I think, when I think of mindfulness, I think a lot of us don't tune into our breathing, tune into our thoughts. How am I feeling? Are my shoulders all hunched up? Is my back all tense? Is my forehead all scrunched up? We don't really think about how we actually feel. So if we have these little micro moments through our day that we are just sitting and having coffee for 5 minutes, or we are, doing something that we don't have our phone. I'll also, speaking of that, now when I do things like go for a walk or do a workout, always the phone often still will be in my hand, especially if I have something coming through that I need to be available for. But as much as possible, if I can leave that phone behind when I go for that walk or go do something why do I need my phone with me when I'm doing, going to a workout or a workout class? Leave it behind. I don't even need to have it accessible. Those little bits really free up our mind. So if we can layer in some of this habit stacking, whether it's that breathing, that mindfulness, it might be some stretching. It could be just something super simple, and it doesn't have to be long, but something that you're doing anyway. Layer in this other little healthy habit that you've been wanting to do more of when you find yourself with these little micro moments that hopefully will be a little bit more open. So those are a few key changes that have been my big takeaway that have truly helped me in this journey and constant striving to just slow down. Changing the relationship with my phone is a big one. It's something that I continue to work on all the time. I'm not good at it. And those things that I mentioned are things that I've incorporated, but I have a lot more to improve on that. Changing relationship with the phone is key. Allowing ourselves, giving ourselves that permission to be unstructured a bit, making sure we get done what needs to get done, but not overfilling with things that really we could take or leave. And then finally, those little moments like sipping a cup of coffee, slow down, enjoy it. If we can layer in that habit stacking of some other level of mindfulness, even better. But at the very least, I'll just take drinking your coffee out of a real coffee mug. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was perfect timing for me. I could use the refresher, use the reminder, especially right at this very moment. You can find the links that I mentioned in the show notes of this episode. And I am Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. And if you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life possible.